So one of the biggest questions that we get during a breakup is if you should really contact an ex who's dumped you. So, should you? Well, once the prerequisites have been met, then yes, it's in your best interest to contact your ex. However, it needs to be done a certain way using a certain texting formula that I'm going to outline in this discussion. So, first things first, what are the prerequisites? Well, a full no contact must be completed. You must also have gotten to a place emotionally where you don't really care if you get them back or not. And then, of course, there's the how of the question. How do you contact an ex to get a positive result? Well, there's a simple 3-step formula that we've come up with, but you'll have to keep listening to figure out what that is. For now, I'd like to actually talk about the prep work that needs to occur before you even think about reaching out to an ex who's dumped you. So it's been my experience that most people who've been dumped gloss over prerequisites and prep work, thinking it's not really that important. After all, the texting formula is sexy and could yield these super cool results. What's not explicitly called out is the fact that the formula really only works if two things have happened. If you've successfully maneuvered your way through a no contact period, and if you've gotten your mind right during that no contact period. Now, to be honest, I'm tired of talking about the no contact rule and its benefits. Basically, I've talked about it enough. And if you don't know or don't buy into the benefits of the no contact rule, then I can't really help you. The quick crash course lesson is that no matter how difficult it may be, it's really important for you to get through a complete 21 to 45 day no contact period. What time frame is right for you? Well, I would encourage you to go to our website and read our massive no contact rule guide. Now, getting through a no contact period unscathed is going to be challenging in and of itself. But the more meaningful thing is your mindset after you come through the no contact rule. So ex-boyfriend recovery has been operating since 2012. That's almost 11 years in business. We've literally had tens of thousands of men and women purchase our program, go through it. Thousands of those have successfully gotten their exes back. I've interviewed them multiple times. You can find that on my website. You can find them on the YouTube channel. And you want to know the big thing I learned? Most people who succeed are the people who, at the end of their no contact rule, got to this place emotionally where they weren't sure if they even wanted their ex back anymore. Authentically, they need to believe this, though. It's not a faked thing. You need to actually get to this place where you're like, you know what, I'm going to be okay without my ex. Why does that work? Well, the best answer I've been able to come up with is that it gives you this certain confidence when going into this texting phase. Instead of worrying about if an ex is going to respond to your text, or if your text is good enough, you're going to think, well, if they respond, cool. If they don't, cool. Somehow that bleeds through when you reach out to them. But it's probably more of an impact on response time more than anything. You don't appear to be as desperate or available. And thus, your ex's perception of you slowly begins to shift. Of course, my team and I have the benefit of not really worrying too much about getting an ex to respond. We've been lucky in that. We've spent years testing and seeing what actually yields responses. We've even created a formula for it, the texting formula. So not only am I going to show you what the formula is, but I'm also going to show you real life examples of it in action. So what's the formula? Hook plus payoff plus high point equals success. All right, this is going to require some explaining. So let's break it down one by one. The hook. All right, this is going to be kind of your text starter, and its entire job is to capture your ex's interest, much in the same way that the first sentence of a book is supposed to capture a reader's attention. You can utilize a combination of pattern interrupts, knowledge-based issues, damsel in distress-based topics. You get the idea. And we've actually seen a lot of success with the damsel in distress type texts. We think this is because it makes an ex feel good and to not only like help you, but also generally you're asking about a topic in which you don't have a lot of expertise in, but they do. It makes them feel kind of like the hero. And it's also important to note that the hook isn't meant to be more than a sentence at most. This is a huge issue we see in our private community. People tend to try to stuff more things into the first contact than is necessary. Basically, the entire job of the hook is to get your ex to respond. That's it. Now, here's a few real-life examples from clients. This particular client said, "So, have you heard the good news?" What news? There's an unanswered question that the ex just has to find out. Thus, they respond. And this person did with 2 question marks. And then once they didn't get an immediate response, they said, "Well, question mark, question mark." Here's another great example of a hook. "Tom, I need your cooking advice." Now, this hook is more of an expertise/interest based. Obviously, this Tom, who I don't know, I'm assuming this is the ex, this Tom is some sort of expert at cooking, or at least has cooking knowledge. And it sets him up so that he gets to be the hero saving the damsel in distress. Here's one more. "You literally won't believe what I just saw." This one is a more direct open loop/curiosity text. And as you could see, it really well for our client, but only because they knocked it out of the park on the payoff. All right, so the payoff. This is the hardest part to get right. With your hook, you're introducing an unanswered question. I showed you 3 examples. "So, have you heard the news?" The unanswered question there is, well, what's the news? "Tom, I need your cooking advice." Well, what specifically do you need my advice with? "You literally won't believe what I just saw. What did you see?" Once you have your ex hooked in and get the quick response, you face an even greater challenge. You need to create a payoff that makes your ex either satisfied, want to help, or engage with you in some way. There are many clever ways in which you can do this. One of our community's favorite ways is to respond with an open-ended question. Basically, respond with something where your ex can't respond with a simple yes or no. Here's an example of that done really well. This person said, "I could really use your advice on something." To which their ex says, "Yeah, sure, what's up?" To which they say, "I'm taking a first-year geography module next semester. What did you think about globalization, economy, space, and power?" To which the ex responds, "Yeah, it's a good module. Quite a nice introduction to things like the UN, ships of power, blah, blah, blah." He just keeps going on and on and on and on. Notice how this is a really specific interest-based, open-ended question. It's not something I am particularly interested in, but this ex really is, gauging on their word count. Also notice how the ex couldn't respond to the question of, "I'm taking a first-year geography module next semester. What did you think about globalization, economy, space, and power?" They couldn't respond with a simple yes or no answer. It forces them to dig in. This is a good payoff. Now, the donut example from above, if you looked at the picture, is another really great example of a payoff. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. "You literally won't believe what I just saw." What? Then they put a picture of the dough nuts. Basically, the payoff works because it's interest-based and shocking. Someone created a dough nuts shop from The Simpsons. It's a good payoff. And then, of course, comes the most challenging part of our formula, the high point. I've stated multiple times throughout the history of my website and YouTube channel and podcast, end conversations at the high point. Don't overstay your welcome. But when you are in the texting phase, it can be difficult to kind of figure out when this is for a lot of different reasons. For one, if you're texting your ex right out of the no contact, the conversation shouldn't really last very long. In fact, if this is your first contact after the no contact rule, then you're supposed to dip out of the conversation after you get the payoff, as evidenced here. You know, the globalization situation. After he responded with this really long text, she says, "Ooh, that sounds interesting. Just dashing into town now, but thanks so much for that." She got out of the conversation. She got her payoff, and now it's time to end the conversation. On the other hand, this was a first contact text message. What happens if you've been slowly building rapport over weeks and your text conversations with your ex are lasting longer and longer and longer? They're naturally going to stretch out. In those cases, you need to do your absolute best to identify the high point of the texting conversation and end it in a similar manner as shown. Now, my general rule of thumb for high point identification is that if you don't want the conversation to end, then you've probably reached the high point and should end the conversation. Now, why is this so important? It taps into the ZEIGARNIK effect. a concept that posits that people remember interrupted or incomplete tasks better than completed ones. By consistently ending the conversations at the high point, you make it more likely that your ex will want to reach out to you going forward. So how do you end the conversation at a high point? Well, you can use the, hey, I gotta go now, which I kind of view as a nice approach, or you can do this.